A Knight's Tale of the Importance and Principles of Leadership by Julian Franklin. In the kingdom of Nemeza there lived an old king. In his time he had won many victories over his enemies and won the love and trust of his subjects across the land. To keep the peace he had allocated great fertile lands and wealth with vanquished foes and made them the lord barons of his country. All was well, for a time. The land prospered, and so too did the people. Farms were farmed, crops were cut, wine was made, taxes were paid, and everyone was content. However, as the land grew fat, it drew the attentions of a particularly brutal dragon. Most of the dragon's relatives had been casualties of the wars in days gone by, and with its own extinction not far off, it had little to lose in plundering the kingdom of Nemeza. At first it started with picking off livestock, sheep, the occasional calf and the odd goat, but later, as its confidence grew, it started to burn down houses, torch grasslands, and cause suffering and misery purely for the sake of mischief. Truly, this was a great entertainment for the monster, but brought disaster to many of the lord barons whose job it was to rule the people of their land, provide protection to their subjects, and pay taxes to their king. Something needed to be done. "It's not good enough," proclaimed Lord Faultless to the king, as they all sat in the council war-room. "Time was when a man could eat his breakfast in peace without having to worry about being turned into burnt toast himself." "Quite right," agreed Lord Shiftless. "Fair day's work for a fair day's pay, that's what I have always said," which was true, but never usually relevant to the issues at hand. "Perhaps," ventured Lord Pathos, "we could offer it a virgin or two, and it would go away." "Pah!" snorted Lord Hearty. "Good luck finding one round here. Anyway, once it has a taste for such things, it'll never leave. Look, your Majesty, we've done the best we can, but this creature is menacing the whole country, and therefore we feel that this is a national problem which can only be dealt with by people at the top. We need you to sort this out." The king, old as he was, sighed inwardly to himself. "Look at these idiots," he said to himself. "They have grown fat, lazy, and unimaginative under my reign. In their youth they would have taken some initiative, led an army to the dragon's lair, dealt with the matter for the sake of glory, celebrated, and had the respect of their subjects and their king, and that would have been an end to it. They would have taken ownership of the situation, delivered results, and continued to earn my trust, and the people they are responsible for. But no. Instead they come wheedling to me, bolstering each other up, and think they're showing backbone and shifting the problem onto me, their king. If they had shown any bias towards action instead of this bias towards moaning, the dragon would never have gathered the strength and speed that it has, and could have been dealt with before it became an even larger threat." He looked each of his lord barons in the eye for a few uncomfortable seconds. Each man, proud, stout, and full of the memories of hard-won, long-ago victories, started to feel their present worth decline. The king weighed each man in his mind. "For 2 pins I'd sack the lot of them and put the dragon in charge. If we are not equal to the might of our enemies, then we do not deserve the honour of ruling the meek and the defenceless. Yes, once these were great men, men of muscle and sinew, of sweat, blood, tears, and ambition, of resilience and tenacity. But those men of youth, vigour, and vitality have been absorbed into the bodies of these fat, unthinking, slightly cruel, and undeserving old men. Sacrificing virgins? Good heavens! Perhaps the dragon might prefer old fatty mutton that's been marinating in port for the past 20 years. The king interlaced his fingers and spoke. "Gentlemen, as I understand it, you are telling me that my subjects, whom I have left in your charge, are suffering. They, who pay my taxes and therefore your wages, are having an increasingly hard time performing their duties because either the land they plough has been burnt to ash, or they are too afraid to venture outside for fear of being evaporated. Rather than take ownership and responsibility for the situation, you have waited until the beast is so powerful that it now not only terrorizes your lands, but that of your neighbours, and now a rather large portion of my kingdom. Have I understood your reports correctly?" This was not what the barons had expected. After all, there were more of them than there were of the king, and, for goodness' sake, had they not all forged an alliance with the king many years ago? Hadn't everything been going very well up until now? It was all very well for the king to have his taxes paid, but, well, they were the ones that made sure the taxes were collected, sometimes even going to the trouble of collecting them at sword point. That was commitment, oh yes. And now they were in trouble? It's not as though they invited the dragon, was it? They each shifted uncomfortably in their once better-fitting, splendid and shiny, and, the king noticed, undented armour. Not armour that had ever been put to the test, but Sunday-best armour that was shined to a gleaming finish, presumably by at least 2 servants, to give the appearance of importance and substance. "Well, your Majesty," began Lord Pathos, "that is certainly one way of telling the story, but the fact is we don't have the resources to deal with such a creature. We've had no training, no instruction, no leadership to be able to deal with such an occurrence." He stopped talking as Lord Pathos began to detect that he was, metaphorically speaking, standing on thin ice, and the fiery glare from the king was sufficient to melt it in a very few seconds' time. "Do you imagine I have a City and Guild qualification in dragon pest control?" came the response from the king, who was delivering this question calmly, but while wishing he had brought his battle-axe to the meeting. "Gentlemen, I have entrusted you to protect that which is most precious to any king, his subjects. Think of them as our customers. Without them, we would have nothing, literally nothing. No one to build our roads, no one to light our candles, no one to make our bread, feed our cattle, shoe our horses, thatch our roofs, and pay us the taxes we need for managing them all and to protect them all. Gentlemen, I tell you that I am obsessed with the well-being of my customers because I know, and you should all heed this well, the only reason I have this job is because they have not yet given it to someone else. And the only reason you have your jobs is because I am your customer. Impress me and I will stay loyal to you. I will protect you. I will pay you, I will promote you and invite you to my famous dinner parties and ensure that you have a good time. But why should I be loyal to those who do not impress me, who do not earn my trust, who don't seem to have sufficient vertebrae between them to form the beginnings of a backbone? Gentlemen, years ago, we have fought together, side by side, and in some cases face to face, and I respected you all as comrades in arms. You seized the moment, and through effort, guile, bravery, and sheer will, you were able to assemble your comrades and forge alliances to bring your might to bear upon the problems in front of you. Gentlemen, can it be that the courage of your youth has been replaced by the uncertainty of dithering old men? If so, then I suggest it is time to take your pensions and take your rest. You can no longer be of service to your customers or to mine. For the protection of my subjects, I had no choice but to hire the very best, and to insist on the very highest standards, even if you believe those standards are impossible or unreasonable. If you will not fight for my customers, and they perceive that they would be better served elsewhere, then elsewhere they will roam, be certain of it. And when there is nowhere else to roam, it will not be long before some young upstart, with the crowd and public opinion on his side, and ready for a change in leadership, just happens to pull some proverbial sword from a stone, and we will not be invited to retire, but lie down for the foreseeable future. Gentlemen, am I making myself clear? We are not fighting a dragon. We are fighting for ourselves against what is not, alas, the unthinkable. That the people we depend upon, our customers, will dispose of us faster than a 3-legged horse. Nemeza needs customers. In fact, we want more customers. We want to encourage people away from where they are at the moment to pay us better rates of taxes in exchange for the dream that the services and the life they have here will be better, brighter, safer, and happier. And in leaving their former domiciles, they weaken those other places which would seek to see our demise. "Sire," ventured Lord Harty, "I can see that we've let you, our customer, down. We have, perhaps, become complacent in our ways, and not considered our responsibilities as leaders, and responsibilities we owe to your subjects, which we now understand you obsess about. I would ask you what it is you want us to do about the situation, but if I've understood you correctly, you want us to take responsibility and come to you with a solution for your approval. Am I right?" "Lord Harty, you do much to commend yourself to my favour," smiled the king. "It is important, in fact, I would say that it is vital that it is assumed that the leaders I have employed are the best that could be hired, and that is because they are right, a lot, or at least the majority of the time. Look where we are now. We stand as men of action in this council of war, and each of you had come with hopes that I would lead you, because your perception is that I am your leader and I am right, even when I'm wrong. The crown I wear somehow confers some infallible wisdom, and that so long as we unthinkingly obey my rules, my dictates, my instructions, then surely nothing can go wrong. At least for you, is that not so? So long as I tell you what to do, I absorb all your responsibilities, adding them to my own, which are not inconsiderable. And when it all goes fruit-shaped, I shall be the one to be blamed. Gentlemen, I tell you this now. Since before I can remember, I have always been attached to my head, and I intend that to remain to be the case. I shall not be offering to place my head on any block soon. I have hired the best, or so I had believed so far, and I encourage your counsel, but I need to take some ownership and responsibility for not developing you more than I have. Listen, I don't want to hear ideas that just agree with my own. What would be the point? I know what my opinion is. Great leaders, gentlemen, listen to the best counsel they can find. They consider all points of view. They consider the outcome, the costs versus the benefits, and finally agree to a course of action after every voice has been heard. You are all fighting men. You are painfully aware of the costs of failure, and this is sufficient wisdom to inspire you to dive deep, as they say, and do your own consulting. Not only at your own rank, but with anyone of any expertise. No one is too lowly to be consulted with. Wisdom comes in many forms, in many tongues and many accents. Don't talk to anyone. Talk with everyone. Learn from them. Credit them with their input. Promote them or reward them. Keep them on your side. Then, with your amassed wisdom you have gained, propose a solution, a plan of action. Think big. Learn and be curious. Consider the least expensive version of your plan and the merits of other less expensive plans. In other words, be frugal. Gentlemen, you are my barons, the protectors of my customers. I have spoken earlier of your guile and cunning. Use these skills, and what you learn from the expert with whom I know you shall consult to invent a solution. To ensure that that solution works, I encourage you to leave as much complexity out of it as practicable. A simple plan is easier to remember than a complicated plan. But if it must be complicated, then split the plan into component parts. Delegate to the best of your lieutenants, and ensure that you keep informed of all that is going on. An uninformed general at war is a lost general, and so too are his men. The fat old barons had been listening to the words of the king. They had arrived expecting to be able to leave their troubles with the king to sort out and return to their own lands and enjoy mead and high living, but as they considered the words of the king, they began to realize the importance of their role in the world. They had easily taken up the mantle of consumer and despot, and had blindly, and in honest ignorance, lost their knightly sense of duty and service to their king and countrymen. Here now was the opportunity to feel some of that courage from their youth, to apply their wisdom and to gain more from people who, to their shame, they no longer thought of as their countrymen, but simply as servants who were employed to be ordered about. Even now, in one or two minds, it was occurring to them that even their servants were their customers, because unhappy servants might seek employment elsewhere, those that were any good at least, while unhappy and unskilled servants did a substandard job and would never find work anywhere else because, frankly, no one would have them. I need to invest more time in my customers, thought Lord Pathos. They were not a bad bunch when I hired them, but I've let them go to waste, really. And if my king can inspire me, reward and protect me, then surely I should set the same example for my staff. After all, a little obsession goes a long way, doesn't it? As one man, all the barons saluted the king, turned with the sharpness and precision they had discovered in their youth, and left with a sense of thinking big, wanting to learn more and be more curious, to take ownership of their problems, to be more inventive, to earn the much-needed trust of their countrymen, their customers, to dive deeper into the issues of the day, to deliver results for their king, their countrymen themselves, and to be able to actually take action. Yes, they would damn well show backbone. They would be heard, and they would listen too. They could disagree, but know that this was all part of the process of arriving at a conclusion, one they could all participate in. And because, after all, these were crafty men of action, they knew that the best chance they had of having their ideas heard, they would hire the best people, make sure that those people got the best training, and then they could go to war with the best intelligence at their disposal rather than, as had been the case up until now, the very worst free information, which usually came in the form of hearsay and gossip. And so, with more fire in their bellies than the average dragon, the barons marched determinedly towards the future, each determined that their new obsession would be in the delight of their respective customers.